Hello and welcome to the Church of Obelisk. Today we're going to take a look at a game of offlane Visage played by Zai, which shows off pretty nicely how you're supposed to play offlane Visage in 733. Offlane Visage is very much focused around killing people in lane, because Soul Assumption does an absurd amount of damage, but for it to actually do that damage, you need to have damage already happening in the lane. So what you want is to have some sort of tanky frontline offline that also does some damage and can take some damage, and the Spirit Breaker is a pretty good candidate there. Other examples would be something like a Nyx, an Earthshaker, a Marcy, someone like that, some sort of brawler. With the starting build, you get +7 to all stats. Then, of course, you get a Tango delivered with Rune Gold with your courier. And this +7 to all stats gives you a ton of damage as a universal hero, making the damage up to 60, which is pretty strong for a ranged hero. And, TS it's slightly more, but with this you have a reasonable chance of getting those last hits anti-denies, despite Visage's rather mediocre attack animation. Very important in Visage to always look out for kill opportunities. So now we're level 2, we got the Grave Chill and the Soul Assumption, so we can actually do a decent amount of damage in combination with our POS 4. So we're just waiting for opportunity, and right now Tia is pretty far forward. We go in here, we use our Q, use our W, and there's no shield on TA. Unfortunately, First Breath happens on the other map, but it's our own Pugner. So we're just trying to get what we can. We didn't have quite range onto the TA, so we traded 1-for-1, so it's fairly even exchange. We're quite low on HP and mana here. So this is why Sai decides to go for Basilius over the Crown. Crown would be great for more stats, and also later works into some items the Visage likes to make, like Solar Crest and Atos. But here he's solo on mana, and he wants to go for the Basilius. And you also need to be a bit flexible in your item builds like that, depending on what you need in lane. Sai has in fact gone for a very aggressive build here. He's went for a second level in Soul Assumption, which you don't usually see, but this gives you more kill threat in lane. And they're going to use this here to secure another kill. Although, to be fair, we've also gotten a kill with 1 level in Soul Assumption. The problem with second level in Soul Assumption is that it doesn't really give you all that much. It only gives you an extra 1 max charges, but doesn't increase the damage per charge or reduce cooldown or anything like that. So usually it's best left at level 1. Sai's trying to play greedy, not getting too much region, but he needs to get some. So he's going to get a Tango and a Mango here, as well as probably that Crown. No, instead he decides he wants to go for the diadem first. So usually the first item on offline Visage these days is Phylactery, which just works out really well with both Grave Chill and Soul Assumption. You have 2 low cooldown abilities, so you get that Phylactery damage and slow a lot of times. Now shield is down. He actually thinks there might be another shield available, so he goes for the Elo Titan instead. And EA is gonna be fine here, but they do get a kill. So so far the lane has gone pretty well. And you can see this in the net worth. He's ahead by about 100, but here's another kill attempt, and this should be another kill. But the shield is up here, and that's the problem with Soul Assumption against TA. But they do get the kill here. Okay, so 1-for-1, another good exchange. Now he's level 6, which is a huge deal against the TA, because now you can remove those refraction stacks very efficiently. And TA is also a ranged hero, so this means she's going to take more damage from the birds. Because melee heroes have, by default, a 50% chance of blocking 16 damage. So that's 8 damage on average, which means your birds basically do 1/3 less damage against melee heroes. We have our Phylactery now, very nice timing. We also kind of rushed it with only like a 1 and a Basilius before. But having early Phylactery timing is so important on Visage. And once you're level 6 and a Phylactery, you have huge kill potential. Because you get so much slow in combination with the Grave Chill and Phylactery that people at this stage of the game have a very hard time getting away from you. Note that Sai has not yet purchased boots. If you're just going to be static in one lane, you don't really need boots. Boots is when you start to move around the map. And this Visage, you don't need movement speed that urgently. Right, so you almost always want to get your first item before boots, so you definitely want to get the phylactery before boots. After phylactery, you can think about getting boots then, but here in this case, Zai decided to go straight for the Solar Crest, which of course is a very strong item in Visage. Gives you some stats, which is always nice, those crowns. That's also why getting the early crown in lane is quite viable. And then of course the physical armor reduction and so on works great with the birds. So Ripley goes for a deep charge, but this is really too deep, right? They can easily teleport in here and you don't want to be that deep. So he's just gonna abandon the foolish Spirit Breaker to his fate. This was not a good charge and he's just gonna get away. And it's important to realize when you can follow up initiation, when you can't. And if you can't, just go away. Yes, your +4 might be angry or something, but it's more important not to die. He unfortunately loses a familiar, kind of sloppily. Now they have a more promising initiation, but still it's not quite good enough. So he just plays it calm. I don't think he should be saving the resummon for this long, but I think the reason is he may be thinking about teleporting to a different lane. But now he decides, okay, I'm going to stay here and resummons. Of course, if you want to TP to a different lane, the best way to get your familiars there is just to resummon. So if you want to resummon anyway, that's a good time to TP. Let's talk a bit about itemization. So what you almost always want to go for as offlane Visage is that phylactery. That just provides you so much extra value early on in the game. Follow-up options are typically going to be one of three. Could be either the Solar Crest, as you see here, a very strong item in Visage, or you can go for Drum, which is just a very strong item in general. Super underrated item. You basically always want to have at least one Drum in your team. It's just that good for team fights. And of course builds into Boots of Bearing, which are also good on Visage. And then the third option is the Rod of Atos. Gives you a ton of stats, which is great as a universal hero, so you get a lot of right-click damage from Rod of Atos. And at least in the early game, Visage is actually a pretty good right-clicker because it's universal and because he gets all that extra attack speed from Grave Chill. So out of these 4 items, Phylactery, Solar Crest, Drum, and Atos, you usually want to get like 2 or 3 of those. You don't want to get all of those because then you're starting to run the slot problems. You want some other more late game options as well. But these are like your best mid-game options. And so far Sai hasn't really been all that active around the map because he doesn't really need to. His team is winning anyway. And if you can get an early level 12 timing, that is super strong because then your familiars get much stronger. The damage actually doubles, which means that against melee heroes it more than doubles. So it's actually super huge. Now that they're super far ahead, what you want to do is take all the objectives. You want to take the outer towers, you want to take Roshan, and then you want to go high ground. So they're sieging tier 2 tower, and Spirit Breaker and Quap dive deep. Visage follows up, as it should be, and now they're gonna secure the tower. In this game, Zai is opting to go for a Vlad's, which as an item that used to be super common in Visage, but has fallen out of favor a little bit with the removal of Wraith Pact. But it's still a very decent Visage item. It's just a problem that it's a dead-end item now, effectively, because you're not gonna get home with the Overlord. And it's another one of these mid-level items, so you're starting to get some inventory problems, but of course you still have the option of going Boots of Bearing, which is going to help that situation somewhat. And the reason Vlad is good in this particular game is because they're already ahead. So in games where you're already doing well, having an extra sustain from Vlad's is very powerful, because it means that after a one team fight you're going to be in higher HP and mana, and don't necessarily have to go back and go and take the next objective, take the Roche and so on, instead of having to go heal after a one team fight. Now they're feeling confident, they're going to go into Roche. They have a lot of vision around the top lane. So this is a fairly safe Roshan, and you can see how much damage Visage does. It's very important to not let your birds die here. Because nowadays Roshan will actually target birds if they're the closest thing to him. In the past, it used to be not to be the case, but they changed it at some point. It was one of these stealth changes. So you definitely would have someone else tanking the Roshan, otherwise your birds die so fast. Also, by the way, if you do Tormentor, you need to be super careful with the birds. They die so fast against Tormentor. Now the high ground pushes on. Visage just shoved out the mid lane a little bit. Now it's coming up at top, trying to help with that siege. The fortification is already out. Also, fortification very strong against Visage. You need to be careful because you're gonna hit your birds, and the birds take full damage from everything that's not an enemy controlled unit. So you need to be careful about that. And they get a nice kill there, and at this point the game is pretty much decided. They get this free lane at 20 minutes, which means that the enemy team is going to give up in short order. So this is just a short little video to show you how to play Visage +3 in the current meta. Hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more content about Visage, Chen, Lone Druid, other micro type heroes, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to see another video, click on the video on the screen. And Obelisk willing, I'll see you there.